Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Megu and this is People and Politics. And today we take a little bit of a deviation, talk about policy briefs that address issues of concerns to citizens. These are some things that of concerns. One of them is the high cost of living, cases of unemployment, how to enhance the economy. Those are the issues of concern that even citizens are engaged in and want to know more about how the government is doing or how the political parties help in all this. So in studio, I'm speaking to Honorable Maina Karobia, who is a UDA nominated MP to the East African Legislative Assembly. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much. And it is elected, not nominated.
Oh, okay, elected.
We are elected by the senators and members of parliament. Yeah,
Karibu sana.
Yeah, asante sana. It's good to be back.
Yes.
The last time I was here was 2 years ago.
Yes.
Exactly 2 years ago.
Yes.
When we were tussling between here and also attending the bombers.
Yes.
Activities of Tallinn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great pleasure.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
And also in studio, I'm joined by Honorable Dr. Agnes Zani, who is a former nominated senator by the ODM party. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
How are you doing this morning?
Fine, thank you. Happy to be here.
Have you ever
how are you?
I'm good.
I've been here.
You've been on Good Morning Kenya, so I've not hosted you personally.
Probably.
Lakini karibu sana.
Thank you.
Let's get into it. And first of all, I would want to know from you, what does governance means to you as a leader? Let me start with you, with Mr. Maina Karobia.
Yeah, from where I sit, governance is all about accountability in distribution of resources and fairness in regards to who gets what, when, and how. But from a governance point of view, there must be the tenets of accountability, integrity, and transparency, and fairness. And also being answerable to the people who have given you the authority that you hold. So that's how I view governance. But I think for me governance is accountable politics, because for ordinarily politics is you just conducting things how you feel fit. But the governance side of it, there must be some level of accountability. There must be some level of transparency and fairness in how you are leading the people and how you are being, how you are holding the authority that you have. Yeah, that's my view.
Mheshimiwa Zani, what does governance mean to you?
Governance means to me a way of running things. Probably most of the time it's used within the context of a country. And therefore you get terminologies like good governance, maybe not so good governance, if we want to say bad governance altogether. But it's a way of running things. And then this cuts across various sectors. It cuts across the economic sector, the social sector, the economic sector, how to coordinate the various ministries, how to run the agenda, how to ensure that goals that have been put forward are actually attained, how to be accountable, how to be transparent, how to let people know all the time what it is you're doing, how you're going about it, where you're very transparent, you're even sharing the challenges and indeed getting the inputs about how to counteract those challenges. So it's a way of taking the understanding that I am doing these things on behalf of somebody, and that's where the question of leadership comes in. So most of the time you'll hear leadership and governance always, being mentioned together, because there's somebody who is the doer on behalf of. For example, in Kenya, we have the sovereignty of the people empowered on the leaders. But you're governing on behalf of the people, and therefore you're taking this agenda for the people. You're understanding this agenda. You're bringing in key components and experts to really get to where you need to get to. So most of the time, many countries will have their own goals, either to improve on their GDP, to get into their social and economic goals that they have put, to follow through the Constitution. For example, we have the Constitution 2010, which has been an anchor for this country in terms of how to progress. So you're looking at all these variant processes and identifying how well are we doing? Are we attaining the goals? What are the challenges? Are we facing the challenges? Are we getting options for challenges? And governance is always a continuous process because change is dynamic.
Yes.
There's never stability. So every time there's change, new ways of doing things, innovation, best practices, looking at what other countries are doing, comparing with other countries. For example, the Singapore idea has always been with us, you know, because we attained our independence more or less at the same time. So we're looking at comparisons. We're looking at China. How are they doing? How are they governing? What is the best practice? What should we incorporate? So it's a broad terminology, but it's about how you run in the country.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, let's get into the aspect of policy briefs that are addressing issues of concerns to citizens. Mheshimiwa Maina, what are these briefs?
From where I sit, let me say, the Kenya Kwanza administration was elected on our campaign promise on the bottom-up transformation agenda, which is synonymous called better.
Yes.
And among the pillars that inform the bottom-up transformation agenda is on the issues of affordable housing, the digital superhighway, the agriculture, the SMEs, and that is and so many other things around the 5 pillars. And those pillars inform the various budgets, the financial budgets that we have in our country. They inform the decisions that we make as a nation. They inform the relationship that the government of Kenya build with other nations and other states. They inform every law that is proposed by the government or by the cabinet secretaries in the Parliament of Kenya. So those pillars that inform the bottom-up transformation agenda now develop the policy that we develop as a government, or we formulate as part of fulfilling the mandate that we are given by the people of Kenya. So for me, the policy brief is around the bottom-up transformation agenda, the better.
Yes.
Otherwise, if the policy beliefs are not around what was voted in by Kenyans, then we will be moving out of the confidence that the people had in this government when they were electing it in August 2022. We have to understand that each and every leader, anywhere, whether it is in politics, whether it is in the religious circles, whether it is in the academia, they always act on the promises that they were elected on. You cannot move out of that promise because you now be fulfilling another person's mandate. So that's why I talked about the 5 pillars upon which Kenyans displayed their confidence by voting this government in. And that's why the president is so keen in ensuring that in 2027 he'll be presenting a scorecard to the people of Kenya on what he has been able to fulfill the last 5 years. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Zani, do political parties that are there live to the expectations that were given on their manifestos?
You've asked a very important question because all through it's very important to remain connected with the issues that you had in the manifestos because these are promises you have made. These promises are pre and post-election. And if you look at many of the manifestos, I am from ODM and in the Azimio coalition, these manifestos over time change but are not very variant. If you look at all manifestos across the form, they will be looking at economic problems, social problems and political problems, but creating a very clear agenda about how to address those problems. And after elections, you're either in government or you're in opposition. You still have a promise that you've made to those people. And therefore, in constructing your policy, you're looking at how to address the issues that you already talked about in your manifestos. How are you going to address them? What are you going to do about them? because policies look at a particular problem and how to address that problem. And we have a variant of many problems. As you know, in Azibia, we have the 10-point agenda. So we're looking at Baba Care, we're looking at health, we're looking at insurance, we're looking at the whole of issue of youth and employment in investment. We're looking at the issue of agriculture and how this can be confounded and people can work on it. We're looking at the issues of ensuring that everybody works together, moves together. We're looking at the issues of ensuring that counties become hubs of production and reproduction. Because you know very well, especially under Azimio and hinging on the coalition and devolution, because especially under NASA, we had the whole issue about devolution. What are we talking about? We're talking about bringing down these resources back to the counties and back to the people. So addressing all this problem in a very concise way is the beginning of looking at policy. But as you might know, there are so many variant issues. And therefore, policy allows us to have a very macroscopic approach of understanding a problem. We've got to look at the problem, identify what that problem is, come up with what we might want to call a problem statement of sorts, so that we can be able to see how to go about it, devise policy recommendations about how to solve that problem, and then enact that policy. So it's just a way of ensuring that we don't just have manifestos, that we can actually look at this manifesto and say, for example, if we're looking at a key issue, like, for example, the cost of high living, how are we going to address it? Are we going to address it through agricultural micro-businesses, for example? Are we going to address it from digital economies and hubs? Are we going to address, if it's an issue of education, how are we going to address it? Are we going to address it with free primary education? And you can see, therefore, the tilts that happen. For example, at certain seasons, we had free primary education or free education right up to secondary. If we look at fees, for example, for the university, how do you control the fees over time? And these policy positions sometimes shift and change and create some disability. Yes. So I think policy is meant to be a guiding anchor and a commitment, but you've broken it down to understand what is the problem. For example, if we're looking at agribusiness, we're saying, what is the problem? Is the problem the infrastructure? Is the problem the information? Is the problem technology? Our farmers not, for example, having enough technology? How do we deal that? And then we come up with a mechanism of ensuring that that technology can reach the farmer. If we're looking at interconnectedness between one industry and another, for example, in the field of education, we're looking at how, for example, can industry be looped with educational institutions like TVETs, for example, so that you're looking at young entrepreneurial young people who have skills. How do you make those skills happen? Because that is addressing the cost of living. Because then inadvertently it's addressing employment. So it's a question of connecting all these and coming up with a very comprehensive way of doing it. And we're talking about comprehensive way, then we're talking about the policy brief. A policy brief is just one pager, probably 2 pages, about how exactly to address that problem. So of course, first you must be able to identify the problem, which has been well identified in our manifestos, and then come it up with a way to address in a very concise, informed way. And that is the policy, coming up with the policy, and with that also policy briefs as a way to spotlight exactly what you want to do and how you want to do it.
Yes. Mheshimiwa Maina, pegin on what Daktari amesema, where does the citizen now participation and considerations of their aspirations play out in all this?
First, I think the aspiration of the citizens, the views of the citizens, at the first instant, they are considered at the representation level by the elected officials. When a member of parliament, when a member of county assembly is elected, they are not just elected to go and take their mind in the areas of, in the chambers of representation. They are elected so that continuously, as they go, as they do their work of oversight, representation, and registration, they can be going back to their backyards, listen to what the people are saying, and be able to registrate or take their views to the relevant platforms. And this platform is the Assembly, the National Assembly, the County Assemblies. Also, when they get the opportunity to meet the executive, because there's always a means of how they will meet. Also, there is a way when they meet the judiciary officials, in one or the other, during these maybe formal and informal setups. But I think, or I believe, the first instant in regards to how views of the common citizens can be taken up is through the elected officials. The other means is through media. When we are talking here, you realize there are people who are participating in this discussion through the digital platforms. Some will send messages to you, some will send messages to the hotline of the media. This is also a second channel upon which, or through which, citizens can air their views on any policy brief. The other one is on other social platforms, like the civil societies organizations, the society groups, community groups, or organizations that have been set up by the citizens themselves, even the church or the religious institutions. So these are some of the platforms which can be taken as credible institutions and platforms that citizens can air their views. And I believe these platforms are democratic institutions. But they are democratic platforms, yes, where views taken or where views expressed can be taken by the relevant personnel and relevant institutions for action. Have political parties so far utilized or leveraged on these platforms to the best of the potential that they have? I think there is room for improvement from my stand. In regards to how political parties can be taking up the views of citizens and push them with a lot of transparency and with a lot of vigor. There is room for improvement, and this comes with as a challenge also to the Registrar of Political Parties in regards to how they are empowering our political parties with the political party funding, timely political party funding. We have been seeing, like for instance, last year or last financial year, political parties were complaining in regards to reduced remittances from the Registrar of Political Parties on the funds that they are provided. You realize a political party such as ODM and UDA, these are political parties that are parliamentary parties. And I think it is important that the Registrar of Political Parties timely remits these funds to the political parties so that they can be able to carry out their grassroots activities. And it is from those activities that they will be able to take the views of Mwananchi, and these views will inform some of the laws that are sponsored by members, private members, or even political parties themselves that they are sponsoring in the parliament or even in the county assemblies. So it is a question of improvement of how we take up our views from Mwananchi and how our democratically established institutions can facilitate action of these views that are expressed by common Mwananchi. But I can tell you, from where I sit, the political parties have really tried, because you realize some of the bills that are sponsored by members of parliament and members of county assemblies, they have the blessings of the political parties. As from where I sit, the experience that I've gained the last 2 years, you cannot just wake up as a member and sponsor a bill without seeking some level of understanding from your political parties, because you, as a member, you'll need the confidence, you'll need the understanding of members of your political parties, so that when you are taking it, you can also be able to talk to members of other political parties. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Zani, how would you say these policy briefs are helping members of parliament to formulate bills that reflect the will of the people?
When you're looking at policy implications and when you're looking at policy recommendations, you're looking at a wide spectrum about some very concrete deliverables that you should be able to achieve. Yes. Members of parliament come through with legislation. This legislation is informed by what is happening and by the issues. As you know, most political parties are always in touch with the grassroots, so you can actually see what is happening to and fro. But you've got to be able to infuse these issues into legislation itself in a very concise manner. When it comes to the issue of implementation, that is handled by various government policies and government bodies, including, for example, the ministries and others. So it becomes a broad spectrum issue. But for example, if you're looking at examples of, for example, policy recommendations on issues like, for example, value addition. How do you add value to a product? How do you ensure that the avocado that we export is not exported just as an avocado, but it is exported in all its variants, including value addition, for example, avocado oil? Put that out for exportation. And therefore, that will infuse on legislation, so that in terms of your legislation, you give in mandate to various stakeholders and bodies, including the ministries, to enact such a thing. If you're looking at issues, for example, of value chains or open market policies, how do we improve the markets? How do we make more people know about the markets? How do we improve, for example, technology? How do we ensure that what is happening in one corner of the world can actually be quickly taken to another corner of the world, so that we can use, for example, internet, we can use interconnectivity, we can be able to tell what the weather patterns are, what to do at a particular time, what is the new thing, what are the new investments that people are making.
There is, from what you're saying, there's some sense of capacity building in all this.
There's a sense of capacity building, but it has to be infused in the mechanism and how to do it. So it becomes very important for political parties to be able to spin this out, to be able to point this out directly. And as you might know, within the coalitions, both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, we've had interactions with the International Republican Institute, who have been basically across the various coalitions key in ensuring that we begin to bring these manifestos, ideas, and everything we want to do in a very concise way. When you have a policy brief, it's just a guide. But that policy brief will contain, for example, issues like job-driven policies. How do we get policies that are going to drive the market? How are we going to get, as you know, one of the issues that has come up very recently is the issue of unemployment. And we're talking about an explosion of almost at 70% youth who are really looking forward to working and they're looking for jobs. How do you infuse that in legislation? For example, just as an example, I was a legislator in the previous, both 11th parliaments and 12th parliaments. I came with a number of various bills, the natural resources bill, the cooperative bill. So at what point do you, so for example, if you're looking for how to ensure that within the counties there's a rollover effect, you've got to make sure you put it in the legislation. You've got to make sure you ensure that funds will be created for that. For example, if you're talking about people within the counties being able to take care of their raw minerals or use them, you've got to create the capacity at the ministerial level and at the county level to ensure those funds run out. And I'm sure you must have had this whole issue about the money bill. Yes. The money bills, this is a money bill, so therefore this is a bill that concerns money and therefore has to go through finance ministry. And this is not a money bill, it concerns counties. How do we harness our legislation within the counties so that these counties can say, for example, it's important to put this amount of money, for example, for ECDs, because that is the mandate of county governments. How do we put aside this money for hospitals? How do we put aside this money that can be able to enhance technological advancement if you're talking about agriculture? How are we going to be able to ensure that the hubs work well? How are we going to be able to ensure that our children get employment? What must we do? So once you be able to configure that way, you're tying in both legislative agenda, and that legislative agenda should be very key about the resources and what should happen. I'll give you an example, which I like to give, and this is in the field of education. So you're saying, for example, there's a misfit between the young people who come out, the training, and what the industry wants. So maybe the industry is aiming towards ICT, maybe the industry is aiming towards getting us to be self-employed, maybe it's moving towards ensuring that we're able to get out there with skills. How do we harness the skills? So you might say, to harness the skills, let's loop the educational sector with industry. Let us have, for example, internships. Let these people come. Let these people use the new machines. You see, that's where legislation now has to come in. So it's a lot of stuff going in there. It's both the legislation, it is the goodwill, it is the financial component. And that's where we come in as political parties to say that these key issues are important for our people. If our people are to get employment, which is critical, if the cost of living has to come down, if we have to address all these issues, then we must be able to find a way to create that interconnectivity. So it is a very concise process where you're saying, okay, fine. It's fine to say, oh, there's unemployment, or there's insecurity, for example, or we have food insecurity, or we have, corruption, or we have this and the other, or we have unemployment. How do you address it? You can say, yes, we'll address it. We'll have this sort of system for education. As you can see in education, we've always changed our format of education. I remember in our time, we went to 844, and then we changed, and we've been changing. So when you're changing this, what are you attaining in the process? So you've got to keep clear about what you want to achieve. At the end of the day, you want to ensure that that you address employment. You want to ensure that there's a link between youth employment and creativity, and that they are bringing this into industry. So how you've got to talk about legislation, budget, how to make sure that budget goes, training of trainers, and it becomes a whole long list of things that one has to do. But if you're conscious about it, so that we're just not saying the cost of living has gone high, what are we as political parties putting on the table as policy briefs to address that? How are we addressing the unemployment of youth? Can we come up, for example, with a digital economy like India and Pakistan have done? In Africa, our digital economy uptake and our hubs at 1%. And the capacity is very big. Other people are at 10% and above. So how do we begin to rope this in a manner that can make changes for our people?
Definitely. Let's take a short break and we'll continue with this conversation. And we are talking about policy briefs that address issues of concerns by the citizen. Don't go too far. This is Good Morning Kenya. Minutes past the hour. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. My name is Mike Migu, and we are talking about policy briefs that address issues of concern to citizens. And I'm having this conversation with Honorable Maina Karobia, an MP to the East African Legislative Assembly, and also Honorable Dr. Agnes Zani, former nominated Senator of ODM. And I want Mheshimiwa Maina to talk about the aspect of representation, especially for the special interest groups. Where do they fit in all these policy briefs?
Each and every political party, from where I sit, is given an opportunity to nominate a person from the special interest group. That is the youth, the women, people living with disability, sometimes even to the extent of the minority groups or the marginalized groups. So it's the people who are nominated across the political parties who the communities around special interest group should be holding accountable. For instance, from where I sit, as a young person, I should be asking the person that we have nominated as a young person in National Assembly and also in the Senate, are they doing their work? And we need to get to an extent where we don't only hold accountable the elected officials, we also need to ask questions the nominated people, because they have been nominated so that they can represent the interest of the groups they have been elected on the platform on. So these are the people who we should be holding accountable. You realize nowadays, even, in fact, yesterday I was sharing, I had paid a courtesy call to the chairperson of the Public Service Commission, and he actually alluded to that also, that among other merits that they also strike a balance on is on the issues of special interest groups, and they go to the extent of also the marginalized groups or the marginalized communities. In fact, he emphasized so much on that issue of the marginalized communities. So These are the officials, these are the people that we should be holding accountable in regards to whether the views and the aspirations of the special interest groups are considered. And I'm happy that partners such as the International Republican Institute, that is IRI, they are so much concerned about the special interest groups. I remember in the run-up to the 2022 elections, we used to caucus as young people across political parties under the facilitation of groups or organizations such as International Republican Institute to develop policy briefs around the young people of our nation. And I remember specifically we came up with a youth charter that was bipartisan. I remember we shared a lot of meetings, a lot of platforms facilitated by the Institute with youths from the Azimio coalition, that is Jubilee, ODM, Wiper, and on our side ANC, UDA, and other political parties, to come up with a youth charter that, irrespective of which political party wins power or coalition wins power, those views that were expressed by the young people from a bipartisan level can be considered. So from where I sit, views can be organized, views can be considered by political parties when they assume power, or even when they are on the minority side, to push for registrations in the view of the charters and the documents that have been developed by young people. Even ourselves at the UDA level, we were able to launch a youth charter that was presided over by the president when he was a presidential candidate in 20. Some of the views are upon progressively when he came to power, as he continues his tenure in power. So that's how we are able to take, that's how views of the special interest groups can be considered through the nominated, elected, and appointed officials. Like for instance, we have advisors of our party leaders from the special interest groups. We have representation of special interest groups wings in our political parties. That is the Women League, the Youth League, the PWD leagues, and the marginalized communities leagues. These are the people we should be holding accountable. These are the people that we should be pushing our views to, so that they can be pushed by the political party for registration and also for action from a resource distribution point of view.
And have they helped the political parties to be in touch with what is happening with the Wananchi?
As I said, there is always room for improvement. There is no perfect leadership. There is always room for improvement. But from where I sit, I've seen, particularly from where I am more inclined to, which is the youth, I've seen our league, or the leagues of our political parties, working closely with development partners to ensure that young people are mainstreamed in the decision-making processes. As recent as next month, there will be something around political parties' training program in Tanzania, mobilizing young people from all political parties across, actually the mainstream political parties in the East Africa region. They will be trained, or they will be taken through the political affairs training program in Dar es Salaam by an organization that operates within the East Africa. And these are some of the ways that young people are represented. These are some of the ways issues of young people can be mainstreamed in the political landscape that we have in our region and also in our country.
So that is definitely addressing the issues of inclusion.
Yeah, the issues of inclusion.
And actually mentorship.
Yeah, by the way, let me tell you one thing, my good friend. I'm not here I'm not at the position that I hold by accident.
Yes.
It is platforms such as the ones that were created by International Republican Institute that they have taken me through trainings, they have taken me through some exposure, that I'm where I am. Otherwise, if I took upon myself just to to fight my way, I wouldn't be where I am. Maybe I would be somewhere loitering on the streets. But it is the platforms such as the ones that we have been provided for by these development partners, by our political parties, because also it's the political party that will expose you to these programs, that we are where we are. So, and I want to really encourage any person from special interest group, please take upon yourself to understand what your political party is doing, because there will always be a program, there will always be an activity that is being pushed by the political party.
So it's not just saying I belong to ODM, I belong to...
Don't just say I belong to ODM and you don't know your immediate representative.
Yes.
Yeah, it is good you get to understand your constituency representative, your county representative, your national representative. That is at the special interest group level, what they are doing. And I'm happy actually, the ODM, just to speak for ODM, they actually have a director who is my good friend, specifically having a director for special interest group.
Yeah.
I met him under this program that I'm telling you about, and he was telling me about they don't only have a representative at the governance point of view only. They actually have somebody who is at the executive level, somebody who is on day-to-day basis following up on the policies that have been made at the boardroom level, and now he is following up for execution and for action. So that tells you, from our political parties have shown goodwill in regards to addressing the aspiration of the special interest groups.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, there's also, how will this, Mheshimiwa, enhance the aspect of citizen oversight over the representatives in a bid to bring about a people-centered, achieve a people-centered kind of delivery?
So that comes to the deliverables. The deliverables have to be very clear.
Yes.
For example, if you're looking at an income increase of 10% or 20%, that must come out very, very clearly. So you have to have those deliverables in advance. But allow me just to infuse that deliverable and talk about what Mheshimiwa has talked about and linking up with the youth. You know, we have the structures from NGC, National Governing Council, to NDC, and then NEC. And then, as he rightly said, we even have the people living with disability as a league within NEC and the report, and we're able to see what is happening. So tying with your issue of deliverables, I just want us to key in this specifically with policy. And I want to use the example you've said about the youth to link up with a policy brief that we have worked on in collaboration with the IRI and I'll bring out these deliverables that you're talking about in a very concise manner. So there are two policies that we have worked on. We've worked on a digital economy and we've also worked on agribusiness as a way to address the issue of cost of living. Under digital economy, we're looking at how we can improve the skills of the youth, especially in the digital hub, which should be so difficult because they're already so digitalized, you know, driven. So, and that can happen within 6 months. We are comparing this with a digital economy of 2.5 trillion worldwide, and yet our annual our uptake for this is just 1% in Africa. We're looking at an annual growth for this industry at 10%. At the same time, we're talking unemployment and the cost of living. We're looking at to ensure that at the end of the day, we're making this digital hub work for us. And we're making sure that we're addressing the issues thereof. So we come to how do we do it? And these are the deliverables that we're talking about. How do we do it? We must ensure we have an authority in charge to ensure this digital hub is well run. The training is done in a substantive way. We need to come up with legislation. We need to be able to come up with very clear issues about, for example, digital rights and how do we talk about this. We need to ensure that we do not have a digital divide, and this is the issue of marginalization. Those who are coming from the urban areas, those who are coming from the rural areas, how are we able to do that? We need to be able to ensure that there's connectivity and we are promoting digital inclusion so that everybody can come on board. That is a measurable that we can, within the political parties, be quickly able to do. We simply look at the hubs, for example. And there's a hub at the African level that is very, very active. And we look and see how many Kenyans are there, how many youth are there. Are these youth from the urban or the rural area? Are these youth those otherwise abled, or are these people living with disabilities? And that's very easy to put together. And then we need to talk about the issues of security and cyber space security, and come up with policies that can work. Because it's one thing, and this is what I want to emphasize, you can come up with an idea. For example, digital economy as our way out to help this youth we're talking about. But if we don't come up with comprehensive recommendations as policy to make it happen, it will not happen. Within a very short time, we'll find that it's already been spaced out. For example, the issue of intellectual rights. How are they able to have patents for the things that they have been able to innovate within that hub? And how are they protected to ensure that those rights remain with them? And you know, we've had many stories about innovation.
There are, especially,
yes.
I interacted with a few students from several TVET institutions,
yes.
and they have very serious inventions.
Exactly.
But when it comes to
patenting, and then that becomes a demotivator. So you're asking about deliverables. If we make that a deliverable, that we have proper patent rights, and these are followed through, there's very clear privacy and security measures that are put into place to ensure that happens, then that will bring us to create this employment and education and innovation and training coming in there. So I've addressed your question within our policy framework. This is one policy brief, and within a short time, I hope I'll also be able to look at a bit of agriculture, if we touch on that. But when we're looking at this digital economy, it is about the youth. And I'm bringing it in because you've asked about this youth. How do we bring in that inclusivity? How do we begin to send out the information that these hubs are easy to manage? How do we, for example, set out processes to ensure that every constituency, for example, has a digital hub? You know, and some constituencies have been able to do that. We can even use CDF, for example.
Yeah, sure.
We can use the money allocation within the counties to make sure that these digital hubs. You see, when you have young people who have these skills, with full of energy and innovations, and they're not able to get out that innovation, it becomes frustrating.
Yes.
So have those hubs. We have India and Pakistan. People are working. We can work from here, but we can be working, for example, solving the issue of Australia, for example. They can say, we are leasing out our processes, for example, to purchasing to the young Kenyan men and women to be able to run our digital hubs for us regarding, for example, transportation, regarding, for example, sales. And this is what people are doing, because many organizations want to remain with their core business. So we can tap this youth that way through digital hubs. Make sure we have deliverables that are very clear. Make sure we tighten those spaces that make it difficult for them to be able to run and make them be able to work. And then we can quickly come back and say, has this deliverable been achieved? What is the percentage increment, for example, in employment? How many hubs do we have now? We started off with one in one county, and I know in many of the devolved units, quite a number of county governments are beginning to do that. But this is a $2.5 trillion industry, and we can easily tap on it and solve a problem for ourselves.
There's you want to add something? Yes.
Yeah, actually I want to maybe emphasize on what Dr. has said, and say that the Kenya Kwanza administration had actually, and I think it's still in the process. I heard the president speak about it when he was doing the town hall in the coast, that we are going to set up digital hubs at the constituency level. Members of parliament are supposed to build, I think they had allocated 50 million per constituency for these digital hubs, and they might cascade them up to the ward level.
Yes.
So what they are going to do, according to the government's plan, and it is in line with, remember I talked about the digital superhighway as one of the pillars of the bottom-up transformation agenda. These hubs, they are going to be built across our country, irrespective of which political party a member of parliament comes from. And it is a national government initiative implemented by the members of parliament. And I think this will go in line with what Mheshimiwa is speaking about in regards to creating jobs, in regards to us working remotely without necessarily having to fly out And I like the fact that he has said it is a 2.5 trillion industry.
It's a 7.5.
And Africa has only
7.5.
utilized as 1%.
A $2.5 trillion industry in dollars.
I think there's a
big
lot
industry.
of potential in that area.
That's a very big industry, and I really hope that the government can take it seriously.
Yes.
I hope the implementing people, that is the members of parliament, can even look even for other development partners. We don't have, the government, the president says that they are going to look for, once the members of parliament construct the ICT hubs, the government of Kenya is now coming to bring the internet and other equipment. I would also suggest the members of parliament should go out of their way to look for other equipments that can also supplement the government effort, so that we can have fully equipped and competitive ICT hubs in our constituencies. And you realize now the Silicon Savannah that we speak about, that when the president had made a visit to the US, the people from the US, the leadership of the US was speaking about, can actually become a reality. And you realize even people from other parts of the world will be coming to see the implementation of this phenomenon across the world, of how we have implemented it. And this is actually going to it is going to remove the youth from the streets and put them into productive sector.
Exactly.
That is the digital.
And you see, now we're beginning to unravel what we started.
Yes.
You know, when we were going through our manifestos, for us as hashtag inawezekana, skills, SMEs, innovation, and the hubs, making this happen, making sure that, for example, it'll bring kazi kwa wote. It'll ensure that everybody is able to work. It'll improve manufacturing and SMEs. And the same sort of thinking in terms of policy across that is across agriculture. We must speak, I see time is moving, if we allow Mike, we must speak about agriculture because 80% of Kenya is agriculture. Some statistics give us at 70%. So it is another cost, another area where we can address the cost of living. There's so much opportunity in agriculture. If we can do agribusiness. We begin to look at agriculture as a business. Already 70% of the youth also stay in the rural areas. They're coming into the towns. There are no jobs in towns, not to the extent that we can get. So how, for example, can we mechanize agriculture? What sort of value addition can we make with agriculture? For example, setting up processing of industries at the product point of view, so that at the source, so that you have industries right there. And that will create employment immediately.
It's a ripple effect.
It's a ripple effect. You know, I talked already about exportation and ensuring that this doesn't happen, but I just want to go to the policy implication and look at strategic recommendations that we can use in agriculture. For example, we can use what we call Internet of Things, IoT.
Yes.
To loop farmers, you know, to loop farmers and say, we've produced a lot, we're overflowing in avocados, we're overflowing in cashew nuts. Where is it needed? You know, you can actually make these sort of quick transactions and discussions very, very quickly. We need to be able to come up with research and development for better crop yields. For example, if you have a crop yield that is not very productive, how are we able to harness so that we use our technologies and our information? That is part of the policy brief now. So we have a policy brief for agriculture. How do we enhance agriculture to create employment and address the cost of living? Because then we'll have employment and people will be able to survive. Local processing plants, for example, and the value addition that I spoke to. Securing land ownership, which is a problem in some places. So you find somebody has land, but they're not sure about whether to produce long-term crops because they're not sure about the land tenure system and how secure they might be in it. Credit guarantees schemes. Many of the farmers have ideas, but they don't know how to get these credit guarantee schemes. So again, it comes back
to it's access to finance.
Exactly, access to finance.
I think it is good from what the senator is saying.
Yes.
There was this organization that was called, I think, Agricultural Finance Corporation, something.
Yes.
I think it is time we operationalized that corporation as a means of offering credits to farmers. And we also need to operationalize the former system of agricultural extension officers so that we can equip our farmers with knowledge. I was reading some I don't want to call it some conspiracy theory, but I found it making sense. I was saying that one of the reasons as to why nowadays our farmers are finding challenges and is because some development partners, some globalist development partners came to our farmers or came to our government and told them to remove the agricultural extension officer. And it is from there and then the farmer was left on his own devices to fight with what you would call the soil science or soil research. You are the one to know whether this soil is good for doing a certain farming. We left the farmer to do to determine all the agricultural inputs that can be put for farming. And what does that mean? It means that along the way, the farmer is going to give up on farming because there is no science around the agricultural part of it, which was supposed to be done by the agricultural extension officer. Then what does the farmer do? The farmer will now turn the agricultural productive area to a concrete jungle. Exactly. So because you want to earn a living. If agriculture is not offering that living, what do? You are going to put up buildings.
And it's actually, And you see, at Azimio, we have said, Fukuzanja, through this same agriculture, blue economy, the blue economy, the livestock farming. And we're happy one of our members, former governor of Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Hassan Joho, is now a CS in blue economy. The cost is so strong on blue economy. How are you going to, I remember some time back there was a legislative agenda that for each of the various counties identify the strong point. Go to, for example, Kericho and ensure that you're empowering the youth to get into the tea industry, in the blue economy, get into fishing and the mining sectors and the fisheries and the blue economy and putting that all together. But again, just quick two ones which had left out: extension services.
We have been added sometimes.
Oh, you noticed them now.
I noticed.
I'm looking at those 2 minutes.
We have been added sometime, but at 8 we are going for a break, but we'll come back. But
very good. Yeah. So for example, extension services, is part of those strategic recommendations in the policy brief, which addresses our Azimio of Fukuzanja. And kufukuzanja means giving people dignity. Somebody ambaye ananja hana hiyo fadhila ambayo anahitaji kuwa nayo, and that sort of thing. And then agribusiness education, farming techniques. Remember, extension services were very key in many of the counties. Management skill, introducing mechanization in agriculture. That can become very important. You've seen in some countries, they have high yielders, for example, of grapes. And they export wine in big numbers. In the coast, for example, we have the coconut, the palm, And you can find this same coconut, as desiccated coconut, be sold in another country. And yet the person who is tapping that tree needs it to feed the child, to go to school for that child.
So for that person. Losing capacity, we are losing revenue.
Exactly. So it's very important. We're going back to what we said at the beginning. And we asked ourselves when we started this process with IRI, what are the issues in our parties? And we went to the coalition levels. What are our issues in Azimio? One country, one product, wealth creation. How do we do that? Kazi kwa wote, fukuza njaa, inua jamii, Azimio la wakina mama, waste not a single child, administrative continuity, and all this coming together. So now we are tying all this and saying, how do we address? This is our policy brief. Let's do this. Let's bring in everybody on board. I know you want us to go for
so on to that point, we'll go for a break. We'll be right back. Don't go too far. Thank you for staying tuned to Good Morning Kenya here in KBC Channel 1. And as we continue with this conversation, what I can deduce is that both across the political divide, you have a convergence of where the country needs to be. Do you agree on that?
I think from where I sit and how I see it is that we Kenyans know our challenges. We Kenyans also know where Kenya should be. The only difference is the approach that we are going to use to move from where we are, which we all agree we are in a certain space, and we all agree Kenya should be in a certain space. The difference is just the approach that we are going to use. But with the recent events, there has been convergence. There has been bridging the gap between the minority side and the majority side of our political system. And now we have seen the people from the minority side have joined the majority side, and they seem to have an understanding of the approach that we are going to use to reach to the destination, the economic, political, and the social destination that Kenya should get to. And I think these are, I remember during the campaign period, analysts, political analysts and commentators were trying to find the areas of convergence between the Azimio coalition and the Kenya Kwanza coalition. This situation that we have currently, the broad-based government, presents a phenomenon and profound opportunity for the political divides to now work on the areas of convergence and understanding that they presented in 2022 and moving forward towards the 2027 now, we can be able to work on and move Kenya to that direction that we all know Kenya should be. And issues like agriculture, for instance, we all need to be food secure. And we have said here, together with the Senator, that there is need for return of the Agricultural Extension Officer. Yes. There is need for operationalization of the Agricultural Finance Development Corporation, so that farmers can now be able to access affordable credit financing for the agricultural activities. The issues of digital hubs and the digital economy. There is need for operationalization of the digital ICT hubs at the grassroots level, particularly from the ward level, so that now this industry can now take over or can take into the consideration some of the demands that young people took the streets to present. These are areas that all of us, irrespective of which political party you belong to, we all agree on, because it takes care of our present and it also takes care of our future. For instance, there is also the issues of infrastructure development, the improved road networks, improved air transport, improved railway transport. These are areas that we all need to work on. We don't need to bring new infrastructure development, but we need to work on the already existing development plans that we have as a country. So, and if you ask any Kenyan, will tell you they know where Kenya should be. They have an understanding where Kenya should be. It all needs what you would call political goodwill. It all needs some level of integrity from leaders and selflessness from leaders, so that people can realize, what will people be saying of you 5 years down the line? What will people say about you 10 years down the line? It's all about legacy. For instance, Mheshimiwa Senator Zani, we all know she is the single most senator who sponsored bills. I don't think there is any private member in the last parliament, or the last parliament, sponsored as many private members' bill as her. That is something you can take from her. Yeah. And that is the legacy that is even on record on Kenya's parliament. Leaders need to realize it is not what you acquire. I was seeing the obituaries here. I've not seen any person who has been written of the amount of money or a lot of or the amount of asset they own. People will only speak of where you are working, the kind of legacy you left, and the kind of impact you left in our country and to the people that you are leading. So I think it is upon leaders that have been given positions of authority to realize that it is not how much you acquire, It's not how much you own, but it is how you impact lives. So the people have been given authority from the recent appointments, the cabinet secretaries. Please work on the jobs that you have been given. Otherwise, people will just come out again to the streets and demand for your removal. And we have seen the president that we have is a president who listens. If the president acquires intelligence that people don't want you to continue holding a certain position, believe you me, he will have no otherwise other than to recuse you or to just remove you from the position that he has given you in confidence and in trust, based on the power that the Constitution gives him.
Yes, Senator, you have to agree that given all these matters around policy brief, it's about working for the people,
Yes.
not just what the party stands for.
Partly the party represents, in the understanding of the party, the desires of the people, because there is meant to be a very close interconnectedness. But the political parties, and especially those in leadership positions, use the sovereignty of the nation for their powers. So it is the needs of the people. And the people will keep presenting these needs over and over again. I see it also as the Deputy Secretary General in ODM.
Yes.
And I can tell you our issue for Azimio was issued on 22nd April 2022 from the Office of the Registrar of the Political Parties. If you look at our ODM manifesto and you look at the Azimio manifesto, there's a lot of divergence. In the workshop, we looked at the various coalitions. It's the main two coalitions, Kenya Kwanza Coalition and Azimio Coalition. And you look at the issues, different language, different presentations, different terminology. It's the same people. We live in Kenya. So if in Kenya we have unemployment, we have unemployment. It is for all the people. If we have the cost of living is high, it is a problem for everybody. If we have the problem of health, education, food security, these are the problems we need to be addressing. So the manifesto is the starting point, understanding this problem. But because also we have that mandate, we have legislators, governance. We started this program with governance. How do you govern? How do you lead? What issues do you bring? We have the ministries, 22 of them. How do they tackle the various issues? How is the issue of energy tackled? How is the issue of finance going to be tackled? How is the issue of cooperatives going to be tackled? How is the issue of mining and resources going to be tackled? You know, all these issues come back to governance. And how are you serving the people? So different levels. At the macro level, governance. As we come down, we come to manifestos and the political parties. Kenya does not have a limitation to how many political parties. I think we're headed to almost 100 political parties. I think we're about 97 political parties presently. And each political party comes with its own aspirations. But believe me, you, Mike, if you look at the manifestos of Africa, let alone Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, we share the same geospace. Our regional issues are the same. So if it's agriculture, for example, if we're talking about problems of irrigation, problem of seeds and getting quality seeds, problem of infusing technology in agriculture and many others, it's going to touch across the board. How we go about it will be different. And then again, this is again made complex because of our inherent, what we've come up with, you know, different systems. We call ourselves in ODM, we are social democrats. So we're looking at, you know, looking at the socio-economic impact of everything we do. When you go to the national level, you have other countries are socialists. Other countries will be termed capitalists. Other countries will be termed, in other countries, Republicans. Others will be termed Democrats. Each with their own that they're bringing in. And why are they important? Now the people have to vet. Somebody will make a choice. They look at ODM, they look at Azimio. They say, I resonate with what they're doing. Once we get that, thumbs up, once we get that indicator, what we do with it, and coming up with these policy briefs and coming up with a clear policy. The policies are there. The policy briefs are there. But how to harness them and make them, you know, you can only pick on one issue. Like, for example, when we went for this workshop, we picked on 2 issues. We picked on many others, but we settled for 2. We looked at the cost of living, and then we came to the digital hubs, and we came to the agriculture. So digital economy and agribusiness. And from that already, you can imagine the richness of what has come out can emanate into the other fields. Now, you imagine, Mike, and viewers, you go to manufacturing, you go to innovation, you go to farming, you go to fisheries. Each of them will come in with its own dynamic. Now we have that responsibility because we need to be able to come out and say we made a difference. We have all the polls. We have, for example, maybe the many polls, you know, recent TIFA polls, for example. Even the issues some of the younger generations have been raising are issues that have been raised for a long time. You know, audit of public debt, for example, with accountability, you know, issues of unemployment among the youth, all this come up. So finally, you have a model where you look and say, for this particular country that had this particular policies, this particular manifesto, this particular goals, where have you reached? We're always improving. And of course, we have mitigating circumstances. We might want to go for the best technology, but maybe we have our own limitations. But we've improved maybe in investment. We've improved in transport. You know, we have SGR now. We can have a new coach at a certain amount there that has been mentioned. You travel quickly. That means I don't have to have a farm here in Nairobi or in the environs. I can have my farm in Malindi. Yeah. And I can just dash to Kwale in and out and come and, you know, network. And so all these, we call them enablers.
Yes.
How to get these enablers on board, but also how to remain focused. And how to be able, not only, we have always been told in Kenya, we're very good at recommendations and policies and manifestos. You know, we have them. Now, we've got to move to implementing well, and also share that information.
Actually, I was
sometimes,
coming to
yes.
I was coming to implementation.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes also, it's not really a problem of there is implementation, but sometimes we haven't talked about it. So now recently you'll hear more talk about it. For example, this is what we have achieved. Our employment levels are here, they've been moved to this place. You know, we have been able to create hubs, maybe not so many yet, but we have a couple of them within the various counties. That's where the evaluation framework comes. And that's why in policy, and especially when you're looking at policy in the process, you've got to look at the process, the outcome, the impact, and then you've got to go to the cost-benefit analysis. What is the benefit vis-a-vis the cost? Have we been able to move from one place to another? And we can move in very cumulative way. For example, the idea of the regional hubs or the regional, you know, instead of counties, the regional caucuses.
Yes.
So that, for example, if you come from the lakeside, you can amass your resources and do something meaningful. Under devolution, a lot of meaningful things have been done. And I think we are steering this country, continuing to steer this country. We hope with good governance, accountability. We have the challenges, yes, they will always be there. But when we have direction as political parties, this is the initiative we're trying to do. We're trying to break it down into tangibles and deliverables in policy briefs.
Mheshimiwa Maina, as we come to a close, how are we, political parties going to help now in implementing these briefs, policy briefs?
I think from where I sit, the political party needs to sensitize their members, not actually members, the elected members, to carry out oversight role. And the oversight role means that if a political party has sponsored a certain bill and it has been acted on and developed to a law, members of elected officials of that political party and even nominated can be able to carry out the oversight mandate by making sure that they follow up or they oversight the implementation level of that law at the executive level. So, and this means, like, I remember the president when he was appointed, the cabinet secretaries, he told them that they will be having what you would call question asking and answering sessions in the parliament. And this has been an ongoing practice from the executive level, where you find the relevant committees and also the parliament itself can actually summon a cabinet secretary for questioning by the committee, so that from there they can be able to be held accountable by the relevant committee and relevant caucusing of parliament to ensure that they follow up on the implementation part of these laws and these development initiatives that have been proposed both by the committees and also by the executive itself. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Zani, I want to start with you as you give your parting shot.
Thank you very much. It's been a lovely opportunity, another chance to come up with ideas on how to build a country. We are all in it from the different generations, all trying to make things better. And clearly from where we sit within political parties, very important to use that mandate to meet the will of the people. You make things easier, because by the time you come back to seek the mandate, you say, look, I've already done 1, 2, 3, 4. It makes it easier. You can be able to remain in touch with the people. And it's not for a good reason that we have 290 constituencies and their representations thereof, including other levels of representations through nominations, as Mheshimiwa Karobia has said, through the women representatives through the nominated senators, for example, in the Senate of Kenya. We have all the various different representation. 290 constituencies have somebody in charge to look directly at what is happening. At the devolved unit, 47 counties can have our macroscopic eye look at what the issues are and delve into the issues and bring it out. Most of the time the issue will be finances and not enough finances, but there are innovative ways of going about it. And some of these, for example, like the digital hubs, get us out of a problem where we are in. It's a sort of, if we want to say, low-hanging fruit, you know, the digital economy, which is being explored at the moment. We have the agricultural economies, we have the educational and investment and all this. So it's really maybe just to have our focus on trying to say, yes, these are our recommendations, these are our achievables, and this is how we want to achieve them more directly. A policy brief is very direct. It's a 2-page thing, and it's a 2-page document, and it just says exactly how you're going to address a certain problem. Because sometimes I think when you have that clarity, it makes it easier. You might have a lot of clarity in many issues, but you say, if I do these 3 things, for example, if I'm able to put infrastructure into place, if I'm able to ensure that in each county we have so many digital hubs, if the digital economy, if we can, for example, have an interconnectedness with the international world, the uptake in Africa is 0.7%. It is not even 1% yet. So there's capacity. So maybe the briefs help us to be able to look and find innovative ways of handling issues, and maybe come up with one and say, here we can do this. So maybe we explore and keep broadening how we want to address political parties, but always remember, we have a responsibility to those who have elected us.
Yes. Mheshimiwa Maina.
Yeah, once again is to really thank you as KBC for hosting us. It was a very objective discussion. This is an engagement that we need to keep on having, so that we can be able to enlighten and also communicate to our viewers and also the Kenyan public on some of the development initiatives that have been carried out, and also the scorecard of the government, and also the scorecard of our political parties in regards to what they promised, and also really sensitize people on the kind of leveling that we need for our leaders. It is good that we continue holding our leaders accountable, because it's not out of envy, or it's not out of a bad intention, but it's rather to ensure that we keep them in check so that they can do better in regards to making our life better in our republic. I also want to really thank the Kenyan public for demanding the best from their leaders for the last two months. We cannot afford to be on the periphery. We cannot afford to be comfortable in regards to the direction which our country should take. We should continue always demanding for the best, so that we can get value for our taxes and get value for our money. Thank you.
Your time is so much appreciated. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you for having us.
That is Honorable Dr. Agnes Zani, a former nominated senator by ODM, and Honorable Maina Karobia, who is an MP to the East African Legislative Assembly, talking to us about policy briefs that address issues of concerns to citizens. This is where we cap this discussion, but don't go too far. Good Morning Kenya continues shortly. We'll be joining Victor in a little bit, where he'll be bringing us details and what is happening at KBC in regards to the 100 years celebration of TVETs in the country. My name is Mike Migwi. Don't go too far.